My husband's snoring is ruining our marriage. He keeps snoring like a lawnmower and has gotten worse. He would wake me up 5 to 10 times a night. He is diagnosed with severe sleep apnea and prescribed air masks to breathe better. He wore them for less than a week because it was uncomfortable. Throughout the years, I have spent hundreds of dollars on over-the-counter sleep meds and earplugs to try and sleep. I've tried calmly to speak to my husband over the years about this, but it has been met with, "You're just a light sleeper." I'm not talking about this / why are we talking about this? Married people should sleep in the same bed. I've gotten very frustrated and yelled at him in the middle of the night. I was impregnated because of his beaches and my therapist strongly recommended that I sleep elsewhere. I moved to the basement because his snoring was still waking me up. This has provided better sleep but a horrible effect on my mental health. I have frequently encouraged him to go back to the doctor about his sleep apnea, possibly try another way to fix it or explore other options. I'm also concerned about the effects of untreated sleep apnea on his physical and mental health. I tell him I want to sleep in the same bed as much as he does. I know many couples find success in separate bedrooms, but he has made it clear that he is not interested in that. Recently he mentioned, "I bet even if I fix my snoring, you wouldn't sleep in the same bed as me." I was stunned. Me toughing it out for over 3 years shows the opposite. In my opinion, he finally offered to switch and let me sleep in our bed, and 3 days later he's complaining about how he can't do it. He keeps stringing me along about going to the doctor. I don't think he actually plans to go. His complete disregard for my sleep over the years is incredibly hurtful. His refusal to fix an easily fixable problem is mind-boggling. My question, should I give him an ultimatum to fix his sleep apnea or I'm out? I am considering divorce. Are ultimatums ever healthy? I need advice on how to deal with this. Update 8 months later, edit. Everyone's saying that he needs a CPAP. I agree. This is what I've told him for 5 years. Everyone that's saying he should try this. I guarantee you I've presented that as a solution for him. The Inspire implant, BiPAP, mouth guards, surgery etc. He insists that he will only try the CPAP. I've suggested different masks and he's reluctant, but he's tried 2 different ones. I do appreciate all your support and suggestions. Though, I guess I made this post just venting. I don't really know why I made it. I sat down with him and I gave an ultimatum. I told him that he needs to treat his sleep apnea or I will divorce him. He didn't say much. We will see what he does with it. I am considering filing for divorce by the end of the year if this doesn't get resolved. For the past 5 years, my husband's sleep apnea has been a significant challenge in our marriage. Initially, I slept next to him, but his snoring made it difficult for me to get restful sleep. Despite trying different solutions like earplugs, my sleep continued to suffer. When I became pregnant, I reached a point where I couldn't handle the lack of sleep anymore. On my therapist's recommendation, I decided to move to the spare room across the hall, and we've been sleeping separately for the last 2 years. A year ago, his snoring became so loud that it started waking me up from across the hall, forcing me to move to the basement to get some rest. Unfortunately, sleeping in the basement took a toll on my mental health. After several conversations with him about my concerns, I expressed that I didn't want to sleep in the basement anymore and asked him to see a doctor for his sleep apnea. Instead, he started sleeping in the basement himself, which felt like a temporary fix rather than a long-term solution. The issue persists, especially when we travel, as our daughter and I end up sharing a room with him, and his snoring makes it difficult for us to sleep. I'm increasingly concerned about how this might affect our daughter's sleep as well. I recently sat down with him to express my concerns about his health and the impact this situation is having on our marriage. I shared that I was worried about the potential long-term consequences, both for him and for our relationship, because I have read studies that state that people die in their early 30s with untreated severe sleep apnea. In response, he made a comment that deeply upset me. He laughed and said, "At least I have 10 more years." Though I've tried to stay calm throughout this, I couldn't hold back my frustration at that moment. After I lost it, he did go to the doctor and got a new CPAP machine, but wearing it consistently has been a challenge for him. There have been various excuses about its discomfort, and despite his insistence that the CPAP is the only option, he hasn't been able to wear it through the night. We tried sleeping in the same bed again, but I found myself waking up multiple times to remind him to put the CPAP back on. After 2 weeks of disrupted sleep, I realized that he was taking the CPAP off as soon as I fell asleep, and I had to return to the basement. Lately, I've noticed through reports on the CPAP machine that he hasn't been wearing the CPAP at all, which has left me feeling incredibly frustrated and helpless. I feel like it's creating a huge wedge in our relationship and making me feel unattracted to him. This has been an ongoing issue for 5 years, and I'm struggling to see how I can continue living like this for another 5. I'm trying to stay calm and find the right words to express my feelings, but if we can't resolve this, I may need to consider other options for my own well-being. Update, I put down a retainer for an attorney, filled out the paper, and I will be officially filing for divorce next week. I finally came to the realization, thanks to almost 900 comments on that post, some wise advice from family and friends, and a lot of introspection, that he will never change. He has a severe lack of empathy for others. I have proof, through many texts, that I have told him his snoring has been impacting my sleep for years and he simply does not care. This is on top of him in the past secretly opening up a credit card, spending $1,000 on playing cards, and catching him talking to other women behind my back. I know it takes 2 for marriage to fail, so I am definitely reflecting on my own mistakes and contributions. My goal going forward is giving my daughter the most calm, stable, loving environment, which I've realized is impossible while in this marriage. If you have any advice on divorce, please give it to me straight. I've been reading up on r/divorce and consulting with my divorce attorney. Story 2, am I wrong for wanting to expose my stepdad to his children? I really need an outside perspective on whether I'd be the a-hole in this situation. I'm a 21-year-old male. I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mom kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mom refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what, she would keep letting him back into our lives and allowing me to be a scapegoat of anything that was wrong in life, and I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mom was allowed to keep and raise my brothers, as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mom and this man are still together. I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mom would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from my Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mom talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said he'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. And Richie said he would be willing to drive him and James to come and visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family, but then a darker thought crossed my mind. This could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them, but honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything I want it to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But, while I know it would be a difficult thing to process, I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. So, would I be the asshole if I went through with it? Update. Hey everyone, I wanted to come back and give you all an update. First off, thanks for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this, and honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to my Richie brother and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff, like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, the James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but the Richie told him to knock it off, which honestly was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realize that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things clearer. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Update. Before anything, I read a lot of your comments. So many were saying I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepdad, and then so many were saying I was a coward for not. Some people were saying I was allowing the abuser to get away with it by not telling my brothers. I had DMs calling me an abuse apologist, people calling me a liar for not answering the question James asked when we first met. I never said I wasn't ever going to talk to them about my past. Literally in my last post I said I was still working on sharing my past in a healthy way, with help from my therapist, and yet I had people acting like they knew best and that I should just tell them both right away. So many people arguing about it one way or the other. It does seem like everything I do there will be issues. I will upset someone. I know that, and I am trying to navigate this in my own way. So please be respectful of that. Even if you would have done it a different way, I am in no way letting SD get away with the abuse. I tried everything I could as a child/teen to get him prosecuted. I have accepted that will never happen. Just know I am a real person who reads the comments. Not everything I do is perfect, but please just be kind. I don't say this to stop people from giving me advice. I love advice. Just be positive and kind. I don't need more negativity. Anyway, in the week since my last post I have met up with my brothers 3 more times, once with both, and 2 times it has been just me and Richie. There seems to have been an instant bond between us, something that I didn't even know I wanted. I am loving hanging out with them, which is amazing because I didn't even think I ever wanted to see any of my family again, never mind start to develop a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone, we went to go see a movie and then get something to eat. We spoke about our plans and what he does now, and we got talking about me and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they haven't been told much, but that mom sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy memories and clear memories, but he said he didn't know for certain what happened. He said he remembered a lot of fighting and arguing between me and SD. He said he had one very clear memory of me, but said he didn't know whether it was appropriate for him to share it or not. He asked me what I remembered, and I said it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked him what his clear memory was. He remembered me being about 8 years old, my SD stripping me naked and putting me in a dog's collar and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with his belt as I was eating out the dog bowl and crying. This actually happened many times for me growing up, but he said he only remembered it once. I started crying and he apologized for bringing it up, and I said don't. I was glad he at least remembered some things of my past. He said he guessed that the hurt by SD was the reason I was taken away. I said yeah. I asked if SD ever hurt either of them and he said he had never, but he said he wasn't close to either my mom or his dad. He said they weren't ever amazingly loving people, but never hurt them. He said he was sorry again. We spoke some more about our childhood. I felt safer talking about the abuse since he already remembered some of it. We spoke a bit more about it. I tried answering questions he had and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I said yeah. I was open with him that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not sticking up for me. I said nothing that happened was his fault, or my fault, and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went to our own homes. He messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and that I managed to keep living. He meant it sweetly, I think, even though it came off a little weird. I feel really amazing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't even have imagined he would have liked me a few weeks ago.